too much as a Ravens franchise and an Orioles franchise, but I tell you what I do like. Every time the Red Sox and the Orioles or the Patriots and the Ravens get together, it gives me an excuse to talk to the many, many fine folk in the New England media. And this guy's probably my all-time favorite. I don't want to admit it too much, but my wife always knows how excited I get when he says he'll do the show. You know his work from ESPN and the Sports Reporters. I've been reading his work for 30-some-odd years. One day I wanted a title of emeritus. He's the emeritus sports columnist at the Boston Globe. You can follow his work at Globe Bob Ryan. The one, the only, and still defending champion, Bob Ryan, back on in Baltimore. What's going on, man? You're podcasting, you're writing, retired. Come on, you're not retired at all.
I do not have a job. I do not have a boss. I take anything I do is voluntary, and the best part is I can always say no. And that's what I wanted. And you don't always get what you want, as the Rolling Stones told us a long time ago. But I'm gotten it, and I'm happy so far with it. And the latest thing in the repertoire is a podcast. Yes, so something I didn't seek. It was presented to me, and at no harm, no foul, kind of thing. We'll see how it goes. So far, so good.
Well, I mean, there's always something going on up there, right? I mean, I thought I was going to be in Boston next week for the Caps and the Bruins. The Maple Leafs rolled over on Sunday, so off to Toronto I go with my passport to visit our friends up there. Actually, the Red Sox are going to be in Toronto when that's going on. This Red Sox team, and I guess for all the Boston sports teams, maybe probably a good time to talk about the Celtics and the Bruins too, there is such an incredible competition there for your eye, your pen, your radio, your television, for everyone there, that the Red Sox don't have time to be doing what the Yankees are doing here, which is retooling. They reload. And I don't know if that's good or bad, or whether they're going to find themselves in the winner's circle when buying all of these arms in the offseason, stuff that Mr. Angelos here has been allergic to. But boy, the Red Sox are trying hard, and for trying hard, it's been a crazy week with injuries, bereavements, and the flu, right?
Well, yeah, it's been very odd, and a totally different beginning of a season. I don't remember ever a time in my experience, perhaps you've had it yourself, perhaps not, where the manager saw fit to issue a vomit report. And that was the gospel truth the other day, that he had to give an update on how many players were vomiting. That's how sick they were. They have not had health. Literally, they just yesterday, while they were on the road, fumigated the clubhouse. This is a first in my experience as well. So it's a very odd start. They're 2-3. They lost a tough one to Detroit the other day when Verlander outpitched Sale, but they're not whole, and now they have Jackie Bradley Jr. on the DL. So they're going to have to take a while for them to get, and they haven't had David Price, as you know, and so they're not even remotely ready to play their game. They just have to hope they stay in the mix and don't allow anyone to take a hold of the division. But there's no way to judge them now. Anybody that tries to judge them based on what they've seen is ridiculous, because they haven't even been remotely whole. And I know injuries, blah blah blah, part of everything, but this is extreme because this is not just injury. This is a flu thing that even affected the announcer. Dave O'Brien missed a game the other day.
Middle of the game, right? Yeah, he had to get up in the middle of the game.
Yeah, because he was sick. So that's what's going on with this. There's no way to judge them yet.
So, look, before I get back to the Red Sox, and I shall, Bob, but I'll meander here. If Bill Belichick said he was going to fumigate a clubhouse in advance of a Ravens visit, how do you think John Harbaugh would go with that? I mean, given the visitors' locker room in New England, I mean, what are they doing to cheat these days, Bob? Because I know 5 years from now, you, Shaughnessy, somebody up there will have a book on what they did to cheat back in 2017 to win, right?
Well, I prefer to look at it as envelope pushing. He's a consummate envelope pusher, and you don't want to spend all your time rehashing what did or did not happen with Spygate, which was always overrated, or what did or did not happen with Deflategate, which was overrated 10 times to the max and had nothing to do with anything, as we well know, had nothing to do with the final score. It had to do with settling a score. And that was the score that the other 31 owners have against the Patriots for their real or perceived transgressions over the years. We don't want to get into all that, but the fact is that Belichick does test your patience as a rival, and there's no question. And he's not always easy to defend. He doesn't make it easy because he isn't charming in public, and he doesn't care. He's adopted a persona for the public. that is not necessarily the real Bill Belichick that people know day in and day out behind the scenes. I think it's an act that he loves putting forth and laughs as he's done with one of these Stonewall Sunday press conferences. I suspect he goes back to the coach's room and they high five and you did it again, Bill, and they have a good laugh, and then he goes out and has a nice dinner. And I'm not kidding about that. I really believe this.
Bob Ryan joining us here. He is Globe Bob Ryan. I'll say this on the Patriots. They've had a hell of an offseason. I mean, from being down 28-3 and, leaving Houston in shame, it certainly has been a whirlwind 10 weeks for them, and it's old hat for them to win championships, but this has been the strangest of off seasons with acquiring and spending money and not having draft picks, and the Garoppolo thing still sort of dangles over the next couple of weeks as well.
It's true, and I'm sure that around the league people are looking at each other and saying, what just happened? How do we allow the Patriots to, quote-unquote, win the offseason, too? Because I don't think there's anyone who would dispute the following statement. They appear to be a substantially better team on paper now than they were when the gun sounded to end this Super Bowl. And so that was not anything anyone counted on, but they have had a wonderful offseason on paper. There's no question, and it's not over. They're talking about Richard Sherman. He could be a Revis type rental. They're talking about Marshawn Lynch. I don't know how real that is, and I don't know why they have to do that when all they have to do is re-sign Blunt. But there seems to be some impediment there that I just don't understand. The guy scored 18 touchdowns for them last year. He's a great 1-yard runner. He seemed to be happy there. I don't think he was asking for stupid money. I don't know what's going on there. I can't help you out on that one. But they have had a tremendous offseason, I think, and clearly the best of anybody in the league.
You ever pinch yourself after all of this? I mean, you covered a lot of really crappy teams other than the Celtics for much of the balance before your hair turned the color it is, right? I mean, and these last 15 years, ever since I married my wife in New Hampshire, when I married her, the Boston thing, they were all losers and the Patriots weren't, all of that. And this century has been, and I really do believe this sort of one-upsmanship that you have going on in the community there, where there's an incredible pressure to make the postseason and to perform that, spans the calendar, it spans the seasons, and the Red Sox went out and did it again this offseason. Now here come the Patriots, and you're going to be watching the Bruins and the Celtics try to compete here the next couple of weeks.
It's a state of affairs since the turn of the century that no fandom deserves anywhere. But so I totally hope, because it's just so over the top, it's ridiculous. We've had all these parades, and we have a chance for 2 more this year. Certainly, the Patriots have the next season, and certainly the Red Sox are in the mix. They were one of the co-favorites prior to this season with Cleveland to win the American League pennant. And I would still put them there if they ever get put together the way they should be. But yes, it's been remarkable, and it's been just ridiculously euphoric, and includes 2 distinctions, being one major distinction, the only city in America that has won all 4 major sports already this year. And if you look at the state of affairs in each of the 4 leagues, you identify for me which city has the next chance to match that. I don't believe anybody else has more than 2 right now, and in the 21st century. It's been a great thing. It's been the golden era to be a Boston sports fan. There is no question, and I just hope that people appreciate it. But it's not about the end. Certainly, the Patriots are in good shape as long as Brady's upright. The Red Sox talent nucleus is as good as any young in the American League. With the Betts and Bogarts and Bradley and so forth, and Benintendi, the 4 Bs. So, it's been great, and I can't. There's no reason for it. We're just lucky. You know what we have though here? We got pretty good continuity management. There's been a proper way to run teams. No drama such as the Knicks or even the Cowboys. What have they won in a long time? But no, we've had good ownership. Who the owner owns, the GMs, the manager, coaches, managers, and players play. It's the way it should be. But as you well know, that's not the way always the way it is in pro sports.
Bob, does the Aaron Hernandez thing still lead news up there? I mean, It's kind of hideous when you really think about it, right? I mean, the guy was inside the building after allegedly murdering people and then murdered people. And I feel like none of that's really stuck to the Patriots so much that they've divorced themselves from it. It's now a news story to some degree. And, and I know Dan Wetzel's running around covering the trial and all that, and I see that sort of on my Twitter timeline. I don't know that it's anything other than drive-by fascination right now with sort of the underbelly of life in sports and intersecting. But, boy, the Aaron Hernandez story is about as ugly a story as we would ever see in sports, right?
And it's one you would definitely want to walk away from if you're the team involved, and they have. It creeps me out to think that if all the allegations are correct and he is doing a life sentence for a murder, and two that would have done if he's convicted on that, or if he did it, because we well know conviction and really doing it are not necessarily the same thing in our justice system. You never know.
Fair enough.
But
Agreed.
But what I'm saying is this: there is no question that after the man murdered someone, he was a full-time member, day to day in and day out in the locker room. That creeps me out. Can you imagine how it must creep out the players? And to think about it, that they knew he was different. He wasn't a social animal. They didn't. He wasn't part of any group in that team. But he was still a day in, day out football player teammate, and they related to him on that basis, and that was fine. They always thought there was something a little odd, but they didn't know how odd, and none of us knew the extent of his background. That Bristol, Connecticut harbored gangs. Who knew? I don't know. We knew he was tatted up. Well, okay, that doesn't make him exclusive. But he was as tatted up as anyone could be, and some of the tats are actually been used against him in the trial. So that's very interesting. But yeah, it's creepy. But it is a news story. It's not right now. You're right. It's evolved into a strict news story about a guy who, he once played for the Patriots, and by the way, he was pretty damn good. And that's really what the discussions what they turn to. What could they have done? Although, win another one, sure, or two. What could they have done if he had been there? Because the guy could play. The guy was great. And he was a great hybrid, a pass-catching tight end that complemented Gronkowski, and it was in a great way. But you're right. It's the weirdest story of its type I've ever encountered. The idea that a convicted murderer was in there in that clubhouse, in that locker room, day in and day out, interacting with these, to some degree, with his teammates. They must just every once in a while walk around and go, oh, my God, did that really happen?
The great Bob Ryan joining us here. He is Globe Bob Ryan out on Twitter, and of course emeritus. That means he works a lot. He's got a new podcast with Jim Lomborg this week, and I will definitely be subscribing to those, Bob, because I love your work. And man, you just glossed right over the Celtics. I mean, I remember when you used to be a Celtics guy back in the day, and they're fixing to be a 1 seed here, and you're not talking about a parade for the Celtics. Is that belief too much in the Warriors, or maybe belief too much in LeBron at this point?
Well, they'd be a bogus 1 seed. That's all about the Cavaliers choosing to go about their business the way they have, and so that don't read too much into that. The Cavaliers absolutely do not care. They know they can win a 7th game on the road against anybody in the East, and they've already done it last year against the defending champions.
But why would you want to have to do it? I guess would be the question.
Yeah, but all right,
right?
let me. I'll give you my whole thing on the Celtics. I love them like a parent loves a child, and I love them and I fear for them. I feel as if I'm the parent of a timid, a lovable but timid 5-year-old going off to his first day of kindergarten. They are not playoff ready, in my opinion. They're maybe first round playoff ready, but they are a really weak rebounding team and vulnerable to rebounding teams such as the Hawks, who, God forbid, they ever had to play them. And they don't have any reliable scoring off the bench. They get lucky some nights, but most of the time, and there's nobody on that team who puts down on his IRS occupation, professional jump shooter. Now, if you think about them over the years, if you go back to the Bird era, they had Danny Ainge and Easting and Scott Wedman in reserve when they needed a little boost on offense. You go to the 2008 team, they had Eddie House and even James Posey. Eddie House was exactly the kind of guy that they need right now. They don't have one. So if they gang up on Isaiah Thomas, as they have in the last 2 playoffs, and say the little guy ain't beating us, where do they turn? Well, we'll see. They tried hard to make a deal at the trading deadline to get Jimmy Butler. It didn't work. Maybe that next year, maybe with the Nets pick and what they'll do with it, they'll be able to get that guy. But they don't have that guy. Don't be fooled by the 51 or 2 wins, whatever it turns out to be. Don't be fooled by the 1 or 2 seed. They're lovable but highly vulnerable. And all I'm asking for them is to win one round, get Stevens his first playoff victory, and then it's absolutely house money from there.
For the rest of the NBA, Bob, because I know you love it so much, clearly the Wizards are better than they've been. They have held their own with Cleveland. They've held their own with Golden State in the last couple of months. It's been 40 years since they've been this good, and I remember the Big E and Wes Unseld and those guys as well as you do. But, this Golden State thing just sort of, there's such the gorilla in the room, and then there's San Antonio. I mean, these super teams. It's an interesting time in the NBA, right? I mean, there were some years where the playoffs weren't so great, certainly the regular season's not so great, but we have this sort of spate of really good teams right now, and I think interesting matchups. The next 8 weeks are pretty good theater. The NBA playoffs have become good.
The East is better. I mean, and you're right about the Wizards. And the Wizards, the Celtics, and Toronto are essentially equal teams. I think you throw them all in a hat, and any one of them could be the team that winds up playing the Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't think they're all good. None of them are great, but they're good. The Toronto and Washington each have potent, lethal backcourts that are capable of 60-plus points in a given night, and that's a great way to start. Portland has that too. But they have that, and the Wizards they're solid. I like them as much or more than I like the Celtics, and I respect Toronto too. Toronto adding up they did very well during the season to bolster the team. They have Ibaka, but there's frankly, I think the other two have a better chance of knocking off Cleveland than the Celtics do. They're there. They're better. And in the West, though, it's still Golden State against the field. And I think that, who may be the sleeper? I mentioned it, I think, and that's the Clippers. I know we've been waiting on them. They're waiting for Goodell with the Clippers to just go do it. It's a terrific first 5. And, I think I think they could be the best threat to Golden State, better than San Antonio this year. And Houston will be, everybody says, you don't want to play Houston. And they're going to be, but Golden State will outscore Houston. They're not losing to Houston. I'm categorically tell you right now, if they have to beat them 180 to 179, they're beating them. They're beating Houston. But so Houston's not beating Golden State, although they might be able to beat everybody else.
I love me a redemption story. Whether it's Tito and the Indians this year, the Capitals were the 1 seed. They've talked about their redemption tour, of losing and being embarrassed last year. Golden State has that going on right now. It just feels like they won last year, but they didn't, right?
No, and then they went out and they loaded up, and what people felt was a greedy, piggy, unfair, just somehow violate the spirit of competition.
Well, we wanted Durant in Washington, but he only grew up around here and didn't even consider it. So
we wanted him here too, and he actually did consider it. And then Isaiah was the chief recruiter, and don't worry, he's going to go re-recruit him. When his contract's over in the Golden State too. So we'll see about that. But the Warriors, yes, they came so close. And now they ended up probably the second best player in the world after LeBron, and they better win. Frankly, they better win, and I think their fans will be absolutely mortified if they don't win, and I think they will. Frankly, I think they will have the wherewithal to beat Cleveland in the finals. I do see a rematch final, as I said, but a slight chance of the Clippers, and then. I don't even know, and then a very slight chance of one of the 3 I mentioned, Toronto, Boston, or Washington, being up there against the Cavaliers. But you're right about the Warriors, and I just hope that when they get down to, they remember that there's no law against taking a 2. If they had just thought about, we just need a 2 to stem the tide here in the last 2 minutes of Game 7, rather than jacking up threes incessantly, they might have won. And so I just hope somebody reminds them, there's no law, there's no shame, by the way, and getting a 2 instead of a 3.
I remember when they were all 2s, Bob. Globe Bob Ryan's the way to find him. Last thing, Fred, I never ask you this, and I don't bring you on too often. A couple times a year we get together, and because it's baseball season, it's my 25th year of doing sports radio. It's my 11th after 21 years in the Orioles locker room of being banned by Peter Angelos and having my press pass taken away. What's a guy like you, on a national basis, say about a guy like Peter Angelos, 25 years now into owning the Orioles franchise, pocketing about $3 billion in value off the television network, and not really coming close to having a parade. I don't think anybody expects a parade around here this year.
No, you're not going to have a parade this year. I don't think. Well, his reputation in image isn't good. He's viewed as a meddler. But I do say he made one hire that stunned. That many of us scoffed, and it's turned out to be great. Whatever made him go and take Dan Duquette out of baseball exile, which is what he was. Dan Duquette's done a good job. He's made some terrific decisions, and I don't know how he's interacting with people, if it's any better or different than it was in Boston. I have no idea, but I just know he's made good decisions. That was a good hire. No, the Orioles are, what can I say? Underachievers, if you will. But this is the 25th anniversary. This is 25th to 26th anniversary of the stadium.
25. 25 was last. Janet Marie was on last week, and Charles Steinberg and Larry. I mean, those are all those people. They built this thing to be the Red Sox here, right? I mean, the Orioles were that franchise that had that fan base and doesn't anymore. Quite frankly, there's 10,000 people at the ballpark.
They've squandered their capital, and they've squandered everything, and they definitely have. And you got a manager everybody respects. You got a ballpark that still people love to go to. I know I love to go to it. It changed everything in ballpark architecture. We know that, and absolutely changed everything. And the White Sox, if they had only had Janet Marie Smith when they built that awful ballpark the year before, that was the last vestige of the old world, and it's a terrible place to go to a game. It can it's not even this. What is it now? There's no longer the cell.
Cell bank. I call it Comiskey. I know you do too. So
got a new name. I don't even know what it is, but it's a piece of what. And thank God for Janet Marie Smith. And she did wonders in Boston too until she ran afoul of the owner's wife. So that's another story. I want to. I have a soft spot in my heart for the Orioles going back to Earl. God knows I loved Earl. And Earl was such a fun competitor to have in the mix, I'm fond of the Orioles franchise, and I'll never be upset if the Orioles were to win. That would be fine with me.
Sometimes Buck channels Earl Weaver and the way he stands with his hair. It's hilarious. But hey, man, always great to visit with you. Thanks for making time. I know everything's optional for you as the emeritus guy up there at Globe, Bob Ryan. But we'll be following your podcast and watching you on Sunday mornings as well. Thanks for the time, Bob. Always a pleasure.
I appreciate it. You're welcome.
You got it. Bob Ryan, the great Bob Ryan, Globe Bob Ryan, out on Twitter. Many years at the Boston Globe, and no one has insights quite like he does. He picks us up around here, makes us look good. You can find us out in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day for our podcast. Listen when you want, where you want, how you want. It's all brought to you by buyatoyota.com. Morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. It's powered up by Planet Fitness and planetfitness.com, where it's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life. And if there's any breaking news at all, you get it first on the WNST Tech Service. That is brought to you by our friends at Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis Colatzos will be here on Thursday, driving you home, getting you ready for the weekend. Caps, Wizards, Orioles. We got the Ravens getting ready to draft in a couple of weeks, and maybe add Nick Mangold before it's all over with, I hope, anyway. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.